Welcome to Deep Sea Science. Today we're going to learn the difference between salty water and fresh water. Fresh water is what comes out of lakes and ponds. Salt water is what's in the ocean. God created both fresh water and salt water because he knew that we would need it. He wanted his creation to be able to survive and to thrive. We drink fresh water, we wash our clothes with it, we water our crops with it. So he knew that we would need fresh water, and so he designed it for us. He also knew that we would need salt water. It's important that we have the oceans, which are full of salt water. They affect our weather patterns, they give us oxygen, and there are billions of beautiful creatures in them. I'm thankful that God is all-powerful and knows everything, and he's so wise. He made every creature in the world, and he made their habitat specifically for them. He gave them food, he gave them water, he gave them shelter. God is good and loving all the time. Now for our experiment today, we are going to observe what floats and what sinks in fresh water and salt water. But before we do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how salt affects water. When salt dissolves in water, like it does in the ocean, it makes the water more dense. That means that the molecules are packed tighter together. So a cup of salt water is heavier than a cup of fresh water. So remember, for something to float on the water, it has to be lighter or less dense than the water underneath it. Since salt water is more dense, some things will float because they'll be light enough to float in the salt water. And some things will be too dense. We're going to find out which is which. And some things will also float in the fresh water because they'll be lighter, and some things will sink. So I have two containers, one with fresh water and one with salt water. I've dissolved enough salt in this water to be like the ocean. So let's try some of these things and find out the answer to our question. I'm going to start with these little jewels. Oh. It floats in the salt water, but not in the fresh water, because the salt water is more dense, so it holds it up. The fresh water is less dense than the bead, so it goes to the bottom. Those are Jingle Bells. It also floats. Nope, there was just an air bubble in there. Air is lighter than salt water. So they both went to the bottom. The Jingle Bells are more dense. Let's try our rubber bands. Our rubber bands are less dense than our two waters. What about our paper clips? Paper clips are more dense than our waters. Let's try our apples. Oh, both of the apples float. The apples are less dense. Their molecules have more space between them. How about our hair clips? Oh, our salt water is holding up this hair clip. The fresh water is not. Let's try our O cereal. Our O cereal floats. What do you think our rocks are gonna do? They sink. If you guessed that, you were right. And our very last thing are hard-boiled eggs. Sink or float? Ah, you see, it's floating in our salt water and it sinks in our fresh water. It's easy to find out the answers to these kind of questions of what sinks and floats But there are some things that are harder to find out. There are some things that are really hard to answer, but the Bible makes it clear that God is bigger than any of our questions, even if we don't find them out this side of heaven. So the next time you go swimming in a lake or a pool, remember our amazing God who designed both saltwater and freshwater, and he designed you, and he loves you, and he wants to have a relationship with you. He is loving and kind, and you can trust him.